All right, so this first story comes to us from Outdoor Life. This was updated on August 2nd by Dak Collins. Another walleye stuffing cheater caught in a fishing tournament in New York. And below the headline there, it pretty much sums up the idea once you even read the headline. It's stupid what he did, especially after last year. I still can't believe it. So let's get into it here. So the first paragraph here is a less dramatic version of the Weight scandal that rocked the professional fishing world in October of 2022 took place over the weekend in Dunkirk, New York on July 30th. A competitor in Bart's Cove Walleye Duel was caught stuffing walleyes to increase their weight. So it's amazing that someone would try this again after what had happened last year with the weights in the fish story. That was pretty big, and it kind of, it kind of made its way through the country as being part of the news. This was a quite, blatant cheating scandal that, kind of rocked even rocked the main headlines with what was going on. So this one, it's not quite as, drastic or compelling of a story as that first one. Certainly didn't have the amount of drama in it. But again, is this kind of one of those things you wonder what possessed this person to take these steps, especially with the scrutiny that a lot of these tournaments are now having because of the incident last year. So basically, from this tournament, their procedure or policy was to cut open these fish at weigh-in because of the concern of cheating and whatnot. So basically, this competitor, Mr. Pete Smith, stuffs his walleyes with two small. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me go back. Yeah. So Pete Smith had stuffed two of his walleyes with smaller fish to increase their weight, and in one of them, a 12-inch walleye with his tail cut off was inside one of the fish, and the other had a white perch stuffed in it. So basically, what was going on is that basically trying to shove these fish down their larger fish's throats, and one actually was too large for that to fit in the other fish, so they actually cut 3 inches off of his tail to make it fit. I suppose they were trying to make it look more natural, that maybe those walleye had eaten the fish and were digesting them. The problem was of a couple different things. So the judge of the event, noted a couple different things. One is that the fish were far too bright. They weren't faded in any way. They weren't, basically they hadn't gone through any of the digestive process. So they basically look like fresh fish. The other one, again, clearly was cut, basically the last 3 inches of its tail. And if you look at the photo of the fish, you can clearly see that it definitely looks like a knife cut, and the amount of the tail that was cut off, it would have been very difficult for even a walleye to cut through the spinal cord of that fish and create that clean of a cut. The other thing that was noted with the fish is that these fish clearly had hook marks or hook holes in their lips, so they had been caught with a hook and line, and then proceeded to get shoved down these other fish's throats. So the fact that they were trying to get away with this, even though in the rules it clearly stated that during this tournament that the fish were going to be cut open and inspected, I'm not quite sure why they thought they were going to get away with this. So, and even with this, the tournament director, knew Mr. Smith and his family, and was really hesitant to disqualify him on the spot because of the escalation of people's reactions from the event from last year. So what he ended up doing was contacting officials from the New York Department of Environmental Conservation, and they were the ones that confiscated the fish. And basically that investigation at this point is still ongoing. I'm not quite sure of what criminal charges would come of this, so if they might face any penalty for this other than the fact of being shamed for cheating. So probably the more interesting bit about this is that Mr. Pete Smith really didn't even need to cheat to necessarily win the tournament. Apparently, he had already secured a high enough bag to basically still have won the tournament. So the director goes on, but the thing about is that Pete didn't have to stuff them. He only gained maybe 10 to 12 ounces, less than a pound, but he had a 22 something pound bag, and the next closest was 19. So this guy got caught for cheating during a walleye tournament that he would have won anyway. So, and if I'm not mistaken, the guys from the tournament, back from last year, they ran into a similar situation where there's a good likelihood that they would have won the tournament outright, even without cheating. I think it came down to what caught the judge's eye in that tournament was the fact that they had such a high limit compared to everyone else. Everyone else kind of had a hard time fishing that day and had smaller bag limits, and these guys were like 2-3 pounds above everybody else easily. I think it was even more than that. So that what really caught the attention. So this guy, again, same thing. He sounds like he would have won the tournament even without having to stuff the fish. So just goes again another instance of it's not worth it trying to cheat in this aspect. The likelihood of getting caught is very high, and then you never know, you may be putting yourself at a risk of getting caught needlessly, essentially. So again, there'll be more to come on this guy for sure. It's not quite sure on what his future looks like in this regard. I'm sure that he's probably not going to be invited for any more fishing tournaments. But again, in regards to any criminal charges, who knows on that one.